Hi everyone, Aaron Solly here to share my video for assignment 2, the motivation and education strategy video. And so the topic I chose is one that has come up actually in the majority of the classes I've been teaching at a local college part-time in the Lower Mainland. And so the strategy that I want to share is rebuilding the confidence of discouraged and disengaged students. A number of the students that I've taught are international students, and since being relatively new to teaching at this college, I didn't really understand the motivations of some international students, and that some of them are. I was finding out, I was quite surprised that they're there just to get their work permit, and I didn't understand that element of things, and so and then others are actually here wanting to find their career, their passion, and are working a lot of the evenings when they're not at school, and so they're not as fully engaged just because they're quite tired and they're having to work full time to pay for their schooling. So this sparked my interest in reviewing this topic and to be able to share it with yourselves. So one of the things that I have done that's worked quite well is at the beginning of every course that I've taught, I have the students write and share their goal on the first day of the course. So what's their goal for the course, or if the majority of them are in a business program. I teach business courses, so the majority of them are there for the long term, completing a program. So what is their goal for this marketing course, this human resource course, this business law course, and ultimately what are they looking to accomplish at the end of once they graduate, right? So having them write that down, and really spend some time thinking about it, considering it. And so I find it they may have not done this before. They may have kind of looked at this when they first were registering and maybe haven't looked at it again. And so I find it's helpful to give them an opportunity to focus on this and remember what their goal is, or reflect on it if they're really not, they haven't really considered it, because it may be this course that they're taking, maybe it's the business law course or an accounting course, and they're looking to be a payroll manager, or in sales, or what have you, and they maybe are not sure how the course is going to help them, and to be able to just consider a little bit more as to what they're going to get out of the course, to help them no matter what career they're going into. And then I get to actually learn more about my students. I get to learn about what's driving them to take the course. Potentially what they're really passionate about, because a lot of them share, what they're looking to accomplish by completing the program, why they got into the program. Some of them were working and for health reasons, or not, maybe just laid off. They had to come back into the workforce in a different way than a different career, or looking to change their path or what they want to do. And then some of them actually don't have a goal. I've had students say that they don't have a goal. So that's good for me to know. I find it's valuable for me to support them with that, and help them look at that a little bit closer as to what would their goal be. Have they considered that? And they actually, because they're sharing it with the class, everybody's getting to know each other on the first day a little bit better, and perhaps in ways that they hadn't got to know each other if they've been in classes before together. This is an opportunity to just improve and enhance connection among the students as a group. So the other thing that I recognized, part of it's even some of the textbooks that I've used for one of the management courses I taught. The content was was good, but it was old, right? So it was the textbook hadn't been changed for the course, and so the companies that were being used and the examples of the leadership team were not the same, 10 years ago as they are today. The stories in that were applicable, but just to be able to remember that and from getting to know the students, and what their interests are, to be able to use perhaps other examples of companies or leaders or examples that are relevant to more present day. I find that really helps in keeping the students engaged, because it's something they can relate to versus something that was 10 years ago when they may, some of these students are in their 20s, some of them are in their 40s or 50s, so there's an age gap, between the students, but trying to make it as relevant as possible, I think, helps in keeping them more engaged, and looking to integrate some more emotional driven content, right? So stuff that's going to spark debate, that maybe is going to spark a little bit of bringing up what's important to the students, right? And that can help kind of wake them up, so to speak, and get them fired up to want to communicate what's important to them, what their thoughts are about let's say the values of an organization that they want to be working for, or as far as the leadership team, and and if it's a very bureaucratic organization in the organization structure, if I think of the HR course that I taught, or some of these software companies and more of the open concept kind of cultures, is it's more of a matrix style where there isn't really a top-down type of structure. It's quite open and more nimble, right? So to be able to speak to that and what that means to them, really, just simple things, such as having discussions start in pairs, so to pair off students to talk about a particular exercise that we're working on, and then and if it's a bit of a bigger exercise, to have them in smaller groups, and then bring the discussion to the bigger classroom, and to be able to have the groups and pairs share. I find that helps with engagement better than just doing an exercise where it's more just open to the group. I find that opening up to the group, and especially early on in a course, is you don't get that much engagement. Students are still kind of feeling me out as an instructor. Can they trust me? What's going to happen if I answer and get it wrong? I can imagine that kind of stuff's going on for them. So just to create more connection and more safety, which is part of my teaching philosophy, is to really create that safe environment to help them just feel that they can ask questions. They can get a wrong answer, it's okay. They can share their opinion, and it's okay. So to just start sort of baby steps, so they're connecting in pairs or in small groups, and then being able to share as a larger group. And then for me to especially those students that aren't engaged, that aren't actively participating, for me to have more one-on-one interactions with those students when things come up, to be able to speak to them. So helps me to better understand their learning style, helps me to better understand what are their interests, get to know them as a person, so that they can they can get to know me and know that if they have any preconceived notions of what a teacher means, especially if they're some of the international students overseas, it's quite structured, right? Education is very formal, and it's just they have to just follow the rules to the exact detail, or there's consequences. And so coming to a more open type of learning environment where it's student driven, and and not necessarily a teacher telling them what to do, but more guiding the process. It can be actually confusing for these students because they're not used to it, right? So to be able to just get to know them, understand where they came from, how they were, experienced learning in the past, and what's the best way to help them with learning, and just get to know them can help build some more trust with them, and speak to what's going on with them, especially when I see certain behaviors where they're on their phone uh, quite regularly, or they're absent fairly regularly. One thing I've found at the place I've been teaching is that the students are aware that they can miss, I think it's 2 or 3 classes based on the student handbook and still pass the course, right? So some of them will take complete advantage of that, right? So to be able to just speak to that, and even speak to the group as a whole when the class starts, as to what, is that really going to help you achieve your goal, right? If is being not here, how is that actually moving towards your goal, right? And to have them make a decision that's actually goal driven versus and speaks to their motivation versus let's just, are they taking advantage of this rule in the student handbook, which really isn't completely benefiting them, right? And then the other thing that I have recognized is to actually consider the hierarchy of needs, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, because, like I said earlier, like some of these students they're working full time, and the full time is usually evenings, so they're at school during the day, in the classes I've taught, and in the evening they're working in a retail environment, or they have a job in a family business, and they're having to work that into the evenings, and then when they come to school, the next day, they're exhausted, they're tired. I've had students falling asleep in class and not really sure what to do. So to be able to just speak to that and get comfortable with having a private conversation, so that I'm not it's not about embarrassing them in front of the class. It's about, let's talk about what's going on, and do you actually need to go for a walk around the campus just to get your energy up? Do you need to go get a coffee or something, or do you need to go do you need to go have a nap? And you can definitely go sleep, but you can't sleep in here, because it does impact the class, because other students are like wondering why this particular student is able to sleep in class. And what I've recognized is it's also, there's a cultural aspect of it. In some cultures, when you're tired, it's normal for you just to sleep wherever you're at, right? And just have a quick nap, and then carry on. And so to be able to make sure that they're aware that isn't appropriate in the classroom, and that there is things that they can do to help with that, and also to look at if there's other ways that they can be able to learn and be able to achieve the learning outcomes, by recognizing the fact that their schedule is a certain way, and is there openings in their schedule where they can maybe do some other exercises or assignments or what have you. The other thing is setting up a buddy system is something that I would look at doing in future classes that I teach, because I actually had one student who was an international student who was not present, quite absent, on their phone quite often, and from talking to the student, part of the challenge is the time difference. His family's in China, and so when we're in class, that's a good time for him to be able to connect with people back home, and so he's on his phone a bit, just being able to communicate because of the time difference. And but one thing, when I did that goal exercise with him, the one thing that he recognized was that he's not connecting to students outside of his cultural background, and it's not helping him with his English. So to be able to set up a buddy system where even in the class, for the duration of the course, that could help a student like this be able to, um, work with perhaps a local student and be able to practice their English more, maybe get to know other groups outside of the class to be able to connect with and start to, meet new people and, and also have, someone from the class to be able to work on different assignments and things together. The other thing that I recognize can benefit the students that are maybe not as engaged in the classroom is to use the online discussion forum. The courses I've been teaching, a lot of the instructors aren't using it, and I have been in courses like this and other courses I've taken where discussion forums are quite active and helpful, and so to be able to get perhaps those more introverted students that aren't feeling comfortable speaking up in the classroom, let's get some interaction happening outside the classroom online where maybe they feel a bit more comfortable engaging more in discussions in that. And then I'm recognizing that it's important for me to provide immediate feedback to students. So when I see students that are not engaged or discouraged, to be able to speak to that, but then also to be able to provide that safe and positive environment when I do see students that are engaged and are interacting, to be able to speak to that as well, to show that that is welcome right in the classroom. The other thing is to be able to use more humor, right? To be able to allow the students to laugh a bit about some of the content and maybe use some humorous jokes or stories or videos just to lighten things up. I know the accounting course that I taught was a month-long course, very intense, and in that course, if the students fell behind, because it was basically a chapter a day for the 20 days of that course, and if they fell behind at all or didn't understand a concept, it really set them back. And so to be able to I look back on teaching that course and to bring a little bit more fun to it, in being able to take some breaks from the exercises, add some fun so that it can help lighten the load, because there was a lot of students in that class getting quite discouraged because of there was a technical aspect of it that they didn't expect, and to be able to bring some fun I think could help, just not have it so even if it is an intense course, let's figure myself as a teacher to be able to recognize that putting them through that intensity is it really helpful to them if there's no enjoyment. Like it's to look for ways to bring some connection with humor. I'm also a counselor. Part-time I provide counseling to adults for anxiety and depression, and so one of the things in my counseling training, I can't counsel students, but this type of approach I can bring to the classroom is really just speaking to the dilemma, right? And this is what I do in my practice with clients. If I'm recognizing a dilemma that I may be seeing happening, just to be able to share it, right? And so that in the classroom. So if I'm seeing students that are absent, or I'm seeing that they're on their phone quite often, or I'm seeing that we've got half of the class that's really engaged and want to participate and half the class isn't, to just let's talk about this. Let's talk about it. Let's put it out in the open, and in an appropriate way, right? And let's work. How can we work together as a class and be able to make sure that everybody's able to get all the learning they can out of it? Because when there's the courses where there is group participation required and the students aren't showing up or they're not really engaged in the groups, that's definitely a learning process for the students around being part of a team and how to work through that. But I think that there's a benefit of it. Let's just talk about, what's happening here, and let's, like, how come this is going on, and I find that because I come as a substitute, that there is some, there is a bit of that challenge of just building that trust, and the students, in some of the courses I've taught, they've communicated things to me that other teachers have done that weren't actually true, and I wasn't aware of that. So this, as far as due dates for assignments and that, and so to be able to just speak to the dilemma, this is what's, what I'm seeing. Can we just, if you want to reach your goals, if you want to get the most out of this course, how can we move forward as a class? And then for those students that aren't engaged, that are discouraged, that there may need some more creativity on my side to be able to look at alternative ways to help them meet their learning objectives, whether they're, there's additional assignments that they're doing, if they're working full time, maybe that, the business course around HR or around business law, they can go to their employer and they can do some research and get to know the company they're working for, and to be able to use that as a as a part of the class, so they can actually, while they're at work, maybe be interviewing employees and their manager, and when on breaks, and maybe even customers, and just to be able to use what's present to help with the learning, right? And get creative on that. And if, like I said, like the online discussion forum, if they're not as open to discuss in large groups, or maybe they'd be open to looking at Toastmasters or a public speaking course outside of the college to help, just to go to a Toastmasters meeting, just to take a step towards, how they can boost their confidence to be able to speak it to a group in that. So this is what I've talked to this a bit already. So around what is appropriate behavior in the classroom, right? So this is something that I think a good practice is to be able to speak to this stuff, on the first day, what's appropriate, and really creating those ground rules. And I've myself been learning the importance of this, as I've been teaching different students, different backgrounds, different approaches in that, different courses, and so be able to set those ground rules that, your phones, we're not here to be on our phones, we're here to learn, unless there's a particular exercise where maybe they will need to use their phone, because some of these multimedia or social media courses that I've taught, they're going on Facebook and Twitter and that, and then sleeping in the classroom, right? Just to speak to that, it is, how is that helping you move towards your goal? One of the is actually I met a VCC instructor that he actually gave me an idea that he uses around just eliminating any distraction with technology and phones. And he basically draws out a chart. So in this case, if it's a class of 16 students, right? He's got a big full, piece of paper, and he's created little boxes in the piece of paper, so a big, big poster board, and then he's got boxes there, and so the class doesn't start until every single student has their phone in the box, right? And if they don't want to put their phone in the box, then they leave it at home. And the class won't start. He'll wait and until all the phones are there. And then on breaks, they definitely can take their phone, on a break, and then when the teaching starts, they put their phone back. And so I thought this was interesting, just a way to eliminate that distraction, and because it is becoming more and more of a distraction. I imagine teachers that are watching this may be experiencing that. So I haven't tried this yet, but I could see how this would it could be beneficial if this is something that continues to show up as in the classroom, and just to be able to set a precedence that this, you've invested in this course, you're looking to achieve a business diploma, in the case of myself, in the courses I'm teaching, let's, in the workplace, you're not to be on your phone. You're supposed, you have a job description. So as a student, you have a role to play here. And so, yeah, so there's something to be said about that to help with encouraging engagement and helping those discouraged students actually get more engaged. So as far as getting a discussion around if it's a leadership course or a management course, I could put up a quote like this by Ken Blanchard, and just say, the key to successful leadership is influence, not authority, right? And so to be able to have maybe perhaps a debate around this, whether we separate, I separate the class into two groups, where one group believes that this is correct, or the other group, and then the other side is that as a leader you need to be an authority, right? So to be able to have a simple quote that can engage the conversation and get everybody actively participating, sharing their own experience with leadership and what it means to them, and what type of leader they want to be in the workplace, in the world, and what leaders have inspired them, what leaders do they look up to, and so helping that be part of their definition of leadership. And then, like I said earlier, bringing in humor. So this is an example of an interview where they're asked about their leadership experience, and the applicant says, "I have 13 people following me on Twitter." Right. So to bring a bit of humor, but also use it as a window into talking about what does experience look like from a leadership perspective. How do you know that you've got really solid leadership skills? What does that look like? And is the number of people following you on social media a good reflection of that? So yeah, and then to bring it kind of all together, at the end of a class, so at the end of a 2-week or a month-long class or course, on the last class, what I have students do is reshare their goal again that they set on day one, and then have them speak to what has their experience been like to move towards that goal, right? So what went well, what did they run into that they maybe didn't anticipate, right? So to be able to share that and really reflect on their experience moving towards their goal. And has their goal changed, right? So I had a particular student that when I was teaching an HR course, they were looking at payroll as the one, and maybe even not even payroll. I think it was actually more of an administration assistant role once they completed the diploma program. And from learning about HR and how it's changed over the years, and how it's HR is more of a strategic partner in a business, and there's a lot of different dynamics to it. They actually shared that they now want to look at working in HR and how that could be possible, and a lot of the skills that they had, even though they were administrative assistant in previous jobs, there was a lot of things that they did that actually were on the HR side of things that could actually help them get into the workforce in that type of position. And then talking about okay, so now after you leave here and you've done this course, so what is your next step, right? So what's the next step to keep you moving towards your goal? Because I actually, when they talk about their goal, I also I expand on it a bit, especially in the last class, and looking at, especially if it's a tangible goal that, I just want to graduate. So if you want to graduate, what is that? what is that experience going to be like when you graduate? What are you going to be seeing, hearing, and feeling when you graduate? When you're on that stage and you get your diploma, what's the experience going to be like, right? And have them recognize that that experience is actually their goal, right? That they they can take that with them, right? It's not about getting the diploma and that's it, right? It's the experience. Maybe they feel like they're gonna feel a lot of this pride, and they're gonna feel really good, and they're gonna feel really happy, and they're gonna feel a lot of freedom to be able to now move into the next step of their career, and they're going to feel a lot more confident, right? So those qualities are is actually what their goal is. So what's the next step to keep moving towards increased confidence, being happy, feeling fulfilled, um, feeling inspired and motivated, and just having them recognize that that's actually their goal, right? Their goal isn't to get a diploma. It is a tangible goal, but what is the actual experience that they can take with them? So then, speaking to the experience, okay, so what's the next step? So what is going to help you move on to the next step? What's specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely? So a smart goal, right? And so that particular student that wanted to now look at HR more specifically, that one of their steps was to now speak to the HR association and learn more about the industry and what it means to be in HR, and how their skills they have could be transferable. So to contact the HR association, be able to do that, right? And so I actually interact a lot more in the last class with the students to really help them get that goal and their next step really defined. And then the buddy system can be really effective because now they have an accountability partner, right? And so that they can actually share emails or phone numbers and continue to have that buddy with them even after they've graduated, to hold them accountable, hold each other accountable for moving forward with their goals in that. So helping with that, ideally transforming that discouraged or disengaged student to someone who's now motivated, inspired, and actually engaged even after they've left the class or the program, and are bringing that energy to the connections that they've made. So here's the references that I had used for this assignment, and I really appreciate you watching this video, and I hope you got a lot out of it. And I would love to get any feedback that you have, or if you are an instructor, any experiences that you've had around discouraged or disengaged students, and how you've handled them. It'd be great to hear from you. Thanks so much.